What is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here at Dean7904. If you want to get all technical on me, it is 4:16 on the East Coast, 1:16 on the West Coast, 3:16 Tennessee time, of course. Oh, that's Austin 3:16. How about that? You're a big wrestling fan, aren't you, Grant?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that the Macho Man Randy Savage?
Oh, yeah.
How do you know who the Macho Man Randy Savage is?
Bonesaw's ready.
Oh, that's how you know from Spider-Man.
I've been Macho Man Randy Savage like 4 Halloweens in the last 10 years.
What?
Yeah. Snap into a Slim Jim, but also I was just alive when he was wrestling.
You are if ever there was a target audience for Slim Jim, I mean, the marketers had a picture of you like on the wall and said, we got to get Slim Jims to this guy.
Oh, man, I love me some dried meat.
There's no way you don't eat Slim Jim. Like, no chance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you care about any other wrestlers? Or just, do you happen to have this outfit by you by chance? Could you like change into the Macho Man on the fly?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Certain parts, I have the shirt. I can wear that next time.
Yeah, the spontaneity and timing is the key to life. Sometimes.
All right, you go ahead and go through things at the beginning. I'm gonna go grab something.
Oh no! Don't ditch me. No. Yeah, feel free to go.
I'll wait till body parts. I guess.
No, I'll give the body parts. Go ahead. I'll go ahead. I'll give the body parts. I'll tell the people who's in, who's out. I'm sure you are well aware. Let's say hello to chat. What up, chat? Do you subscribe? Turn on notifications. Ask some questions. You can ask myself and Grant and Devin are fabulous. I just saw Grant's shirt being taken off. I think it's just for me. I got premium access. I don't believe Devin is showing that to you guys, but there you go. That's for the ladies and for the gentlemen out there. Have at it. Enjoy yourself. Yeah, ask some questions as far as the slate. We're talking, this is NBA, by the way, if you guys are not aware. Baseball is on layaway. You got Stevie TPFL and Derek Carty talking baseball today, I believe at 5:15 on the East Coast. Premium takes you home, talk about baseball and basketball. Shenanigans, of course, will ensue as far as basketball because it is late in the season. We're still about 3 hours away from tip-off as far as getting all the information for basketball. And sometimes it comes after tip-off. Let's let you guys know who is in, who is out, who is questionable currently. All right, big one, Indiana. Brogdon, he is currently questionable with his hamstring. Gogo Batadze is still questionable, as is Jeremy Lamb. Out officially, Miles Turner and Jakar Sampson. Nerlens Noel is questionable with his ankle. Alec Burks is questionable for conditioning reasons. I'm almost certain, I don't know. I feel fairly confident that Noel's not going to play. He hurt himself last night, and this may turn into a Taj Gibson chalk night, which, hey, that's fun, isn't it? Sure, why not? Barton and Morris are still out for Denver. Powell is questionable for Portland. Grayson Allen, they're basically fully healthy there in Memphis. Allen is questionable with his hand. Zach LaVine still likely out. He's currently doubtful for COVID health protocol reasons. Vukovic is questionable with his adductor. If he doesn't play, Young, Tice, Markkanen to some degree are kind of sort of somewhat interesting to various degrees. Utah, Conley is still out, as is Mitchell. The Lake Show, LeBron came back. He's gone just like that. No LeBron James out with his ankle, and Dennis Schroeder is going to be out for the next 10 to 14 days for health protocol reasons. Steven Adams is questionable with his toe. If he doesn't go, Hernan Gomez can become interesting for sure. San Antonio, we got White out with his ankle. DeJounte Murray expected back tonight, not on the injury report. Golden State, Andrew Wiggins questionable with his knee. Kelly Oubre's out with his knee. Lee and Pascal are still out. Detroit and Orlando. Oh, look at this. Almost done, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Can you do the show in that voice the entire time? That'll be absolutely amazing. And I don't know if the people would love it or hate it, but there's probably no in between.
I don't know. I'm ready for it.
Could you cut a promo right now on somebody?
Snap into a Slim Jim.
That's not cutting a pro. I'm going to see you at the Omni in Atlanta. No, all right.
These are some pretty intense blue light glasses.
Orlando, Okiki, MCW, Ross, Ennis, Porter, all not playing basketball this evening. For Detroit, Grant, Plumdog, Ellington, Okafor, DSJ, Corey Joseph, all out. They questionables, Hamidou Diallo. Grant, I am assuming you are aware of all the body parts as far as what we're monitoring, but I mean, for the slate, we should have this conversation. We talked about it off air. The Orlando and Detroit only have so many bodies. Both teams are actively trying to lose. That doesn't mean they're going to be shooting the other team's basket, but it's beneficial to them in the long run to lose this game. Houston has it pretty much locked down as far as the worst team in all of basketball, 16 Ws. They have the one spot, the most ping pong balls, however you want to say it. But then Detroit's got 19 losses. Orlando's got 19 losses. They're playing each other tonight. It's going to be an absolute gross basketball game. 211 is the total there. I don't know how to predict these rotations because, again, the players are going to be trying. They want to put good stuff on tape. Obviously, some of them are going to be free agents and all that, and they want to stick around in the league. But what do you make of this game, and how do you think the rotations are going to go? I just have red flags up, and I really don't want to play a lot here, but some stuff is kind of sort of somewhat popping, so I'm conflicted.
You're talking about it's so tough to see. These are
the
really
Magic
strong.
And the Pistons.
Yeah, these are really strong blue light glasses. Not easy to see. So now they're up. You kind of have to play some people. Like Jackson's going to be in there. He's going to get a whole bunch of usage. Like Hayes is going to probably play 30 some odd minutes. Like there's just not enough bodies to go around on pretty much both sides that there's going to be something that happens here. And I mean, neither of these teams have been very good defensively since the All-Star break. Like Orlando's been one of the worst defensive teams over the last 10. I think they're ranked like third worst defensively. It's just a good spot for fantasy production, but they're so bad offensively that like you have to have something. Like Stewart obviously stands out as one of the better plays on, I think, over on FanDuel. He's a bit too cheap. He's too cheap over on DK2. He's sitting there at 6.3K, and the guy's been over a fantasy point producer per minute. And Orlando's a horrible rebounding team. Like everything kind of just stands out to be like you're going to get someone who ends up crushing. And I think Hampton's probably going to come in a little bit low owned and should end up getting production there off the bench and should end up putting up a pretty decent game. Like someone's going to hit something pretty high in this game in terms of value. But like we look at the slate overall, and I mean Caruso is the guy that's mainly popping because he's 3K. Schroeder playing without Braun in there. Likely a guy that's going to be owned. Like Bazemore should be in for a few more minutes because of the injuries. Like you're looking at all these cheap plays, and I mean something's going to end up happening where they're going to end up getting some cheap player is going to get a huge boost because this is the NBA. This is May. This is trash. I hate it right now because it's so hard to predict. I hate it until I love it, pretty much. Like until we get all the news and you're just angry every single piece of news. And then when it finally all comes together, it makes things more interesting. But as of right now, like you kind of have to look at that Orlando-Detroit game for a lot of your value pieces.
Yeah, you mentioned Caruso. He's stone minimum on DK. We're expecting he's going to draw the start tonight, 3K tonight versus Denver. Second half of the ESPN doubleheader. That's Denver versus the Lakers. If you want to go narrative street, Jokic can final nail in the, whatever you want to say. One more pitch as far as being MVP. I think it's pretty open and shut. That's myself personally. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because Jokic, my second favorite player in the league. For whatever it's worth. What's really interesting in that game, we'll delve into it. Anthony Davis is like somebody that nobody's going to play outside of Yahoo, where he's still ridiculously cheap. Play Anthony Davis on Yahoo, but no LeBron. You have to think at some point Davis is going to have one of these monster days. Why can't he do it on national TV? And again, there's also no Schroeder, so another one of their heavy ball handlers as well. It's not going to be that game either. And it could be not just a Caruso chalk night, stars and scrubs. You want to get yourself Jokic. Westbrook, we'll talk about it in a second. That environment against Indiana is just amazing. It's like a different sport. 246 total Indiana versus Washington. That's also a 7 o'clock game. 2 7 o'clock games, both distinctly different. Orlando, Detroit, 211 as far as the total. Indiana, Washington, 246. And it's a sphincter clincher if you're betting the under in that game because it's defense optional for sure. We saw Sabonis come back in a hard way. He was just incredible last time out. I believe he dropped a triple-double in the first half against OKC. It's just spectacular. We don't know about Brogdon. That of course can change some things as far as the individual pieces on the Indiana side. But I gotta think. Oh, the other part was that Nerlens Noel, if he doesn't play, it's going to be Taj Gibson and Alex Caruso opening up Jokic and Westbrook. Like that's kind of what I see. What do you see? Is that what you see? Basically the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like going to be a little bit the chalkier plays, or I mean, depending on the site, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, no, obviously, like Curry's a little bit cheaper over on FanDuel than he is over on DK, and you could potentially play Westbrook and Curry both on the same lineup over on FanDuel. Jokic is probably like we know Westbrook and Jokic, both of those guys, like are pretty much offering you a giant floor, giant ceiling in every single matchup. Westbrook just is crushing on a nightly basis for like the last month and a half. Curry is a little bit more priced up over on DK, but he's still the guy that can end up putting up a massive outing. An interesting one are like kind of the lower owned options in Zion, in Trae Young, and in Embiid. Like Embiid obviously been involved in a lot of blowouts recently, so he hasn't been putting up monster numbers. It's not really a great matchup going up against Bulls, and like depending on injuries, could not be a close game. But if this game stays close and Vooch doesn't end up playing, it's not a terrible defensive matchup. And he's a guy that can put up a 70-point outing at any given time. Trae Young is going up against Portland. Portland's been one of the worst defensive teams in the league over the last 15 games. I think they're ranked 5th worst in the league. And obviously Lillard, not a great defender. That's one of the highest totals on the entire board. And I don't think Young or Lillard are going to draw almost any ownership on the slate. Probably Young a little bit more than Lillard, but Trae Young, obviously 3rd game back since the injury, played 36 minutes in the last game, could be in for a boatload of minutes tonight and a plus matchup if this game ends up staying close. And Lillard obviously been putting up pretty decent games over the last few, close to 60 points in the last 2 games. Hasn't been shooting great, and if he actually has a hot night, can put up a massive outing. Both of them are going to be drastically lower owned than both Westbrook and Curry, and with people likely playing Westbrook and Curry or Westbrook and Jokic, there's no guarantee or that they put up a huge outing. Like they could end up with just 60 points, 55 points. And Trae Young and Lillard can end up putting up big outings, probably right there with them at about a G or 1,500 cheaper than both those guys. So it's definitely an interesting slate up at the top, considering that everyone's going to be on Westbrook, going to be on Jokic, going to be on Curry. And there's always a little bit of pivots at those exact positions at drastically less ownership that have the same ceiling.
Yeah, monster total there, 235.5 as far as Portland versus Atlanta. And that's interesting because you're right. People are going to mostly ignore Lillard. They're mostly going to ignore Young. And I kind of sort of get why. But, this time of year, besides the fact it's a pretty good matchup here for both teams, it's super important as far as motivation. And who's more motivated right now than Portland? They're currently in the 7 hole. They have to smell blood. The Lakers are in the 6 hole. And you have LeBron talking about what crap. I love LeBron. LeBron's my guy. But, like, for him to all of a sudden say, hey, this playing game is nonsense or BS, or the guys get fired, I can't remember what to use exactly. But, like, the playing game is kind of playing all the games they play. It's kind of stupid, too. But, like, money and TV deals and all that, if you want to get technical. But the playing game's fun, even if it doesn't make a lot of sense, but like it's fun and like the fans
it makes things more interesting. Like,
yeah,
absolutely makes it more interesting, and it's not even really close. Like,
yeah, more
towards
clicks,
the end of the season,
more conversation.
most guys, most teams are just kind of like, I don't care, it doesn't matter. But the playing games makes everything kind of matter way, way more. So I mean, I personally like them, even though it probably doesn't matter too much, but it's definitely fun.
Well, it matters the Portland. The kind of the point I was making is that Portland's currently in the 7th spot. If you guys aren't aware, 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9. You want to get 6. 6 is distinctly better than 7. There you go. And Atlanta is currently in the 5 spot, but Miami and Boston are right in their tail as well. So point is, both Portland and Atlanta will be fully motivated to win this game. And to me, that is important. And to me, that tells me you catch, Lillard in the right night, he might play 39 minutes and score 45 points. And, same deal with Trae Young, could play 37, 38 minutes and, dish out 15 assists and have those 30 points and just let those guys roll. I understand they're in different sides, different conferences, but they both individually have their reasons why they want to win as many games as possible down the stretch. The opposite, of course, being Detroit and Orlando. The problem is Detroit sit thin and their prices are still pretty reasonable. And if I'm running my optimals, Grant, FanDuel optimal, Isaiah Stewart, Josh Jackson, Hayes, Bay, these guys are all popping in them. On DK, you got Jackson popping as well, Stewart, Bay, Hayes. Now, for what it's worth, to be fair here, Grant, is that one thing that's worth noting, is this is Nerlens Noel playing. So if Nerlens Noel doesn't play, Taj Gibson, I assume, would jump to the optimals, and that would kind of shuffle things up a little bit differently, which is a good segue because we got SBK, we got Keach, and 8-game slate, potentially Alex Caruso chalk night / Taj Gibson chalk night. Get excited, Keach. Who's excited? You're excited.
Of course I'm excited, man. Yeah. Taj Gibson chalk night, or is this 2015?
I don't know what, even 2015 sounds egregious, but yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
It's so give me, of course, Keach is on the projection team here at Rotogrinders. If you guys want to get RG access, get $10 off your first month. Devin's going to go ahead and drop the link in chat for you guys. You want it a la carte, just one sport, you can do it that way. You can get all the sports with the exception of NASCAR. You can do it that way as well. We're going to be talking about what's going on there at Lineup HQ from the Lineup HQ projection team. So, and there's also an if then article. I presume we have an if then. If Nerlens Noel doesn't play, how many minutes will Tibbs run Gibson into the ground?
So last night, initially, I actually projected Noel to sit because he had obviously sprained his ankle yesterday. He had X-rays, and that alone was enough for me to think he wasn't going to play. And I still think he's not going to play. But I had Taj at 32 minutes. I believe the last time that Noel sat was a game against New Orleans, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, on April 14th, actually. And I think Taj played like 35 minutes in that game. So
why not?
There's definitely 35 minutes he played in that game, scored 27.5 fantasy points. So, I mean, they don't really have much in terms of bigs behind him. They could use Norvel Pell, I guess, in that spot, or play small and use some more Obi Toppin. But they seem to, for whatever reason, really want to have Taj out there. And I assume against a pretty big Memphis team, especially while Valanciunas is out there, I would imagine Taj would be a part of things. So I still think Noel sits, and I would imagine that, when we remove him, we'll have Gibson probably in that 32 to 34 range. 34 is probably a bit high, but 32 would be my best guess, I think.
Yeah, and FanDuel makes it easier too. A lot of times, when you're kind of put to the decision point of you can only roster one center. You go cheap, or you go for the points of like a Jokic. But Taj is actually a power forward on FanDuel, and I think he's actually power forward and center eligible on DK as well. So he's going to be super popular and for good reason. I know it sounds ridiculous, but he will be super popular and for good reason if Noel doesn't play. What else are you monitoring? What else is worth talking about? The Detroit situation. I'm really uncomfortable with that game. Just two teams not trying to win, but math is telling me I should be playing some Pistons. Do we think Hamidou Diallo is going to play, or it's just if he does? He actually played 25 minutes. He did not combust. He survived it. He played more. They extended him beyond 20. Do you have any thoughts as far as Detroit? It's just not comfortable for me to play all these guys in Detroit.
No, but I'm honestly the exact opposite side of this one as you. I would prefer to be heavier on this game than I think a lot of other people would. I mean, both of these rotations are pretty condensed. You kind of know what you're getting for the most part. I think that Orlando front court is a little bit confusing. Like I don't know exactly what to expect out of Morris Wagner. Blunt's played 34 minutes in his first start there. But I think there's a lot of options on both sides that are appealing. Like I still have some interest in Cole Anthony, despite the fact that his price is continuing to come up. Dwayne Bacon and RJ Hampton, Gary Harris. Like I don't hate those guys as options. Wagner himself is playable. I am going to be back on the Josh Jackson train after 3 straight pretty much abysmal performances. Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, all those guys are appealing. In terms of Diallo, I don't really have a feel one way or the other in terms of whether or not he's going to play. I think I might have some mild interest in him, maybe, if he were to suit up, but that'd be digging kind of deep. I don't have any issues kind of going a little bit heavier on this Detroit-Orlando game. Obviously the rotations are a little bit condensed. You want to target the young guys for the most part, but there's not a whole lot of competition on either side right now.
Yeah, again, I'm going to begrudgingly be playing him. I'm anticipating it's somehow not going well, despite the fact you have to play a certain number of minutes, you have to play 5 guys, and still I'm almost looking at this game, and it just feels like this is going to be just a brutal, brutal basketball game with two teams that, from my perspective, have no interest in winning, which can be concerning. Indiana, you want to touch on that as far as Brogdon, or is there something else you think it's worth focusing on before we get you out of here?
We can take a look at Indiana. I mean, so they
Did
obviously
you touch
have
on
Sabonis.
Chicago yet?
We did not. You want me to? I can start there. Obviously, Vucevic with that Q tag. I think we have a what if up for that, but we kind of, I guess, saw a preview of what that will look like in the last game. Whole lot more Thad Young. He played 33 minutes, 45 fantasy points. He's like just. I love Thaddeus Young. I mean, obviously he was drafted by the Sixers, so that has a little bit to do with it. But he's phenomenal. Like a front court guy that can like give you as much as he does. Is awesome. Daniel Tice, I think, would become a more appealing option. They're going to have to play big, obviously. Although whatever center they throw to the Wolves on Embiid's probably going to end up in early foul trouble. Outside of that, there wouldn't really be anybody I think that would get like a huge bump. I mean, obviously Kobe White we'd expect to do a little bit more. Laurie Markkinen a little bit more involved. Patrick Williams maybe would become an option, but not a whole lot exciting, I don't think, on that Chicago side. And then, back to Indiana. Brogdon questionable, Lamb questionable, Batadze questionable. I really don't think Lamb or Batadze is going to play. I think Brogdon has probably the best chance of those three. But with Sabonis back now, obviously Brogdon's ceiling isn't quite what it was before he had gotten hurt. While Sabonis was still out. LeVert's kind of upside takes a little bit of a hit now that they're getting healthier. And both those guys are like super expensive. Brogdon at $9K on DraftKings, LeVert at 8.6, so you're not getting any sort of discount there. So even if Brogdon sits, I don't know if I'd be rushing to roster LeVert, but I would definitely still be interested in playing Sabonis. And I'm just kind of curious to see what happens with O'Shea Brissett. Like, if he's going to keep playing 1 million minutes every game and blocking like 10 shots, I mean, he's just on an unbelievable run. I'm curious to see if that continues or not. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the Indiana side.
Brissett's one of those rare guys that like he's the starter and he's getting a bunch of minutes, and if the game blows out, they're like, screw it, let's give the guy more minutes. Let's see he's the perfect player, no matter like he's blowout proof. That's what it appears to be. Of course, the price is fully adjusted as well. Hey, before we get you out of here, let me ask you a question you can't answer. You're a Philadelphia guy. Doc does some goofy things, especially if Vuk doesn't play. If Vuk can't go, it's a back-to-back for Philadelphia. What are the chances Philly counters and says, they went to OT last night? I can see some shenanigans going on with Philly today. What say you?
I think they would have done it already. I was kind of expecting some shenanigans, to be honest, especially after playing an overtime game last night. The starters did, I mean, none of them, they kind of still played like a normal amount of minutes. Like, I think nobody played more than 35, even with overtime. But I was kind of expecting some shenanigans. And I feel like when we get it out of the Sixers, it's generally – we still got a couple hours, so maybe something happens soon. But I think if we don't hear anything in the next hour or so, that is a 9 o'clock Eastern time start. So yeah, maybe we just haven't really gotten to that point yet. But yeah, I definitely think there's a chance that something happens. I mean, overtime game back to back, not a good equation for a guy like Embiid, especially who's like already been kind of dealing with some things as it is. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right to be a little bit concerned about it. It's definitely something we'll be tracking pretty closely.
Or maybe they're just waiting for the Vuk news to drop. Hey, one more. I'm asking you a bunch of questions, and Grant, feel free to jump in here.
Sure.
You're on this whole show apparently, but what up with Ben Simmons? You're a Philly guy. Explain Ben Simmons.
What's up? I mean, he's phenomenal. Listen, he doesn't take 3-pointers. He doesn't take 3-pointers. He doesn't take long twos. Whatever. I mean, he's constantly. He's a phenomenal defensively. I don't even really think I need to say anything about that. Should be defensive player of the year. Even on offense, it's such a good facilitator. I mean, when he's coming downhill and like defense has collapsed, and you got Danny Green sitting in the corner, Seth Curry on the other side. Like, there's just, I mean, he's amazing. He's amazing. I don't care that he doesn't shoot threes. Embiid's great. Like, if there's a Sixers team that's going to win a title in the next, or I want this team to be the team that does it. I love everything about this team except for Shake Milton.
It's a wild year where you could argue 7-8 teams can win the title this year, which I can't remember the last time that's happened. It's never like this.
Yeah, it is. I think it's going to be like an amazing playoffs. I'm sure LeBron's not going to be happy about the play-in stuff, but yeah, the postseason. I think playoff DFS this year is going to be as fun as it's been like in a long time.
I'm looking forward to it for sure.
I'm looking forward to sports betting on the playoffs.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I can't wait to bet for the Suns or Jazz to lose their second round matchup.
I think I have money on the Suns and Jazz to win the title, like 20-1.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's okay. You can
Great
hedge
bet.
out of that. Yeah, you're fine.
I'm not going to hedge out. Balls to the wall, buddy.
They're not winning the titles. So if I said you can argue 7 teams, I guess you can argue sort of the Jazz, maybe. But
you can't argue the Suns?
Yeah, no. Who's their third best player?
Ayton.
Yeah, that's the end of the conversation. That's it.
I think it might be Jay Crowder
the number one team in the standings.
Who cares?
I do.
Keith, we'll get you out of here. I don't know why words around the conversation. We appreciate your time.
One more thing, though, Dean. I can't believe you even brought up the idea of hedging to somebody that's dressed in what Grant is dressed in right now. That does not look like a man who's going to hedge. And one other thing, Jay Crowder would be the Suns' third best player in the playoffs.
Again, yeah, that's a 3-and-D guy that's super replaceable.
Hey, who's the Lakers' third best player?
They have the top two of the five.
Hey, who's the Clippers' third best player?
They have 2 of the 5 best
players.
players.
Who's the Mavericks' third best player?
Moore.
Hey, who's the Jazz's third best player?
All right, guys, it's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, Keith, it's been good. Grant, we can continue that conversation for sure. It's a fun conversation to have. But hey, how about you know what? We want the chat to interject. Chat, what up? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications, fire off some questions. Myself.
Tell Dean he's a dum-dum.
You could say that. That's fine. I actually don't have the chat open right now, but Devin, it's his job to translate that, to communicate that to me. He's been jumping on the show in the last 15 minutes or so, give or take. What else are we? What have we not focused on? Is there anything we're crossing off, Grant? Anything we're like, we're just not playing anybody in this team?
I don't.
Am I boring you?
So.
Is this yawn?
Yeah, I'm old and I haven't eaten yet.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really want to play a ton of guys on the Lakers, but Caruso is there.
You're supposed to be interested in Davis, but there's no LeBron and there's no Schroeder.
I mean, you're supposed to be. Am I? Like on this slate? Not really. Yeah, you're supposed to be. And I guess Indy, Washington, we have someone. Orlando, Detroit, yes. Golden State, New Orleans, very interesting for tournaments. Or Steph over on FanDuel.
What if Wiggins plays? How interested are you in Wiggins, and how much does that hurt a guy like Bazemore?
I'm still not hurt. I'm still not really into playing Wiggins. I'm probably not going to play him. Like, I don't really. There's a big enough slate, and there's enough different places to go that I just don't really want to play him. Like, Bazemore definitely gets a little bit of a bump down. Poole's not in play, but like, it really doesn't change too much for me.
I don't think I'm playing anybody at Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, J-Val is interesting, especially over on
he's got a good price. He's got a good price. Is it DK or FanDuel where he's got a pretty good price?
I think it's FanDuel.
Slow down pace.
6-7 over there. Yeah, like, especially if Gibson is starting, even if not, Noel's not premier defender. I guess like Philly's probably the one with the least amount of interest out of any teams.
I still think something goofy is going to happen there. It's 2 hours after lock, and maybe
San Antonio and Utah. Like, who are you playing in that game?
Well, I mean, Clarkson, you're supposed to, but like, the price on DK for Clarkson is now 7.3K. They're 7-point favorites against San Antonio. When Utah blows teams out, or when just in general, when teams blow teams out, the 6-man a lot of times is the one that gets hurt the most, like the good 6-man. I remember this, if you were old enough and played DFS a long time ago. Remember Jordan Crawford was a thing for the Clippers like years ago? He would always get screwed because you're blowing them out too bad. And therefore, you don't come in the game until 5 minutes left in the third or 6 minutes left in the third, whatever it may be. And if it's already a walloping and it's already a shellacking, your minutes are going to be cut, significantly in the fourth as well, because you don't stick around and mop up. Point is like Clark's, and he's also got to be really efficient as far as his scoring, and his shooting hasn't been great. He's not this great shooter. I mean, he's a volume shooter, which is a nice way of saying he's not very efficient. And 7-3, come on, man. I understand he can get there, but I don't think I'm doing it. Gobert's got a pretty good price. I'll give him that on FanDuel. The FanDuel price for Gobert is pretty interesting, and some of the other peripheral pieces. We used to love Utah when Conley, or one or two of the guys, Conley and Mitchell, are both out, but now the prices have fully adjusted basically to everybody else. So it's hard to be enthused about any of these guys, really. Ingles and Bogdanovich are fine. Niang, it's a dart, but the floor is low for sure. And the San Antonio side, I guess you think the game's gonna be close. Murray's certainly playable, right? I don't think, was he actually injured? I think he was just resting, right? last game.
Yeah, they kind of just ruled out Murray, Podol, and DeRozan all at the same time. Like, F it.
Yeah. And San Antonio is actually, aren't they? Yeah, they're in contention for the 10. Well, I guess they're going to get the 10 spot. I don't want to say no matter what, but they're currently 31 and 32, and the Pelicans right on the fringe at 29 and 35. But San Antonio has a pretty good, they're 3 games ahead in the loss column as far as getting that 10 spot and playing Portland or the Lakers for the 7-10 playing game. So I assume they feel pretty confident in that. Otherwise, they wouldn't just be resting dudes. How about Randall? We talked about, the possibility of playing some Taj. Randall's going to play 40 minutes or so in a pace-up game against Memphis. RJ Barrett, you got to pay for those minutes, but he's going to play 40 minutes as well, possibly.
Did you see the game? I can't remember what game it was. I don't think he sat the first 36 minutes of the game. 3 quarters in, he had not sat a single second.
Just amazing. Even during the timeout, the commercial breaks, they don't let him sit. He's got to stand up.
Yeah, well, you don't want to get cold.
No chair for you. Yeah, and again, the Vuk Philadelphia game could be really interesting, or it could be nothing if everybody plays, and that's kind of sort of where I'm at on that. A way to be different on the slate, I guess you talked about it, right? You like the Atlanta-Portland game. I assume, do you like that as a bit of a mini stack? You play Young and you play Lillard, and nobody's doing that combination?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of first of all, it gets the rest of your lineup a little bit different because of the 2,500 in price savings. But you get drastically less ownership than Westbrook and Steph, or Westbrook and Jokic, or whatever it is. You no longer need Caruso in your lineup. It's just, you're getting the same upside like that. What are the odds that Lillard and Trae Young outscore Steph and Westbrook?
Ugh. Not great. Westbrook is outscoring he's just outscoring the world these days. He's incredible.
Well, let me add this in then. So what are the chances that Trae Young, Lillard, I guess we can just do a 3-guard combo.
A 3v3 is what you're dropping on me now?
So Westbrook, Curry, and Caruso versus, let's see, Lillard, Trae Young. So just off of that, you get 1,600 and 1,600. So 3.2K in price savings. So those two, and then I don't know. Let's see.
I'll just
Cole
throw this out.
Anthony,
Okay.
Kobe White. Really anyone. Who's someone in the 6K range that you? Really
I like Anthony. I don't know if I'm getting there, but I like him.
So
I've talked about it. I think he's a legit good player. He's plenty confident if you listen to him too. He's fun. I hope he's going to be good.
I mean, if Caruso, what's Caruso's most likely outcome?
Between 19 and 26 fantasy points.
All right, so let's say he gets 26, Cole Anthony gets 40, which is not terribly likely, but not even remotely unreasonable. So Cole Anthony, Lillard, and Trae Young, essentially you'd be getting an extra 14 points from Cole Anthony. What are the odds that Trae Young and Lillard are within 14 points of Steph and Westbrook combined?
Yeah, I suppose, sure. But the Westbrook thing, we shouldn't just blow off. He's been absolutely incredible. The only teams that kind of sort of somewhat subdued him have been Cleveland. But Westbrook is, the rebounds and the assists are going to be there, but then it's the scoring. Yeah, he's not an efficient shooter, but if he drives to the basket, it's about who's the rim protector for Indiana. And I'll wait. You go ahead and you tell me who's going to stop him at the rim, because nobody is.
So in most matchups, not many people are going to stop him at the rim.
Well, who's going to try to even contain him on that Indiana side? With the absence, the point is the absence of Miles Turner makes this team defensively so much weaker than they have been, with him. It's just a significant downgrade. Sabonis, he's a great offensive player, but he's not really known for his defense, and he's not going to stop Westbrook. And Westbrook's just going to get to the rim whenever he wants. He's so good. But so I pulled up the dollar for dollar best plays in Detroit. Well, let's go FanDuel real quick. We're going to bring Devin on in a second. Again, fire off your questions there in chat. He's going to compile. Let us know, FanDuel, DK, what site you're playing on. Is it for tournaments? Is it for cash? Are you still playing cash these days? Who's playing cash? NBA? Man, shout out to you if y'all are still playing NBA. I play the big single entry ones on DK, and that's it at this point. I've stopped firing out head-to-heads.
Do you like gnocchi?
I'm sorry, who?
Gnocchi?
What is that?
It's potato pasta.
Oh, I thought that was a player I wasn't aware of. Like what? Did somebody get hurt? What did I miss? I don't know. I don't believe I've had the pleasure or lack of pleasure. What? Sell me on it. Potato pasta.
It's potato. It's a little like potato dumplings pasta.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. Are you shopping on DoorDash right now?
No. I'm gonna make gnocchi after this. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to go with.
Are you inviting me over for dinner? Is that what's happening?
No, you're not allowed at my house.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I thought we were tight, Grant.
No.
This is gonna be an awkward 15 minutes.
I mean, it's not like you already know it, but I got the gorgonzola one. I got the stuffed gnocchi, and I got the sweet potato gnocchi.
Oh, sweet potato, I'm out. Yeah, sweet potato. Come on, that's for the birds. Before we bring Devin on, just want to fire off. Tell me if you're going to be, if any of these stick out to you as far as you don't want it or you want all of it, you want none of it. Caruso on DK is our clear best quote unquote value, 7.35 fantasy points per dollar, projecting him at 22 fantasy points. Jackson currently at 5.84, 32 fantasy points at a 5.6 asking price. Royce O'Neal is one of those, just doesn't matter how many guys are out. His usage is so terrible. I mean, if I land on him, I'm never happy about it. Then we have Temple and Bazemore and Dumbuya, then Killian Hayes. Any of those guys, like, you have a strong stand on, either a positive
Killian
or
Hayes is probably my favorite album, but not really. Like, they just are what they are.
And Hayes on FanDuel 4.4. He's our top fantasy point per dollar. And that's the problem, is that first, Hayes, second, Jackson, fifth, Stewart, seventh or eighth, if my math is correct, Sadiq Bey. All Pistons, dollar for dollar plays. Of course, raw points matter at some point too. And this may change if we get Noel being out, because currently we have Noel in and Taj will become a great play. Devin, you're a vegetarian. You probably eat whatever Grant was saying before. I don't know. I guess
gnocchi is delicious. I can't.
Have you had the Trader Joe's ones?
I probably have, yeah.
The Gorgonzola one's fantastic.
Yeah, no, anything. I mean, if you add cheese to anything, it's already going to get so much better, but gnocchi is.
Yeah, which one do you think I should add? There's a saffron sweet potato one, and then there's one that's stuffed with tomato sauce and mozzarella.
That's the one. Tomato
for the
sauce
record,
and
is Devin invited over for dinner, or is it?
Yeah, Devin's always allowed over.
Oh, yeah, just wanted to make sure. But
we sometimes play Call of Duty. It's been a while, Devin.
It has been a while. I have got a lot of questions. Well, not really a lot of questions. I have some questions loaded up that I wanted to ask you guys. Dean, you asked me in pre-show if I had any questions of the day, and I've got one for you. And this one actually stood out to me, one, because it's a good question, but two, because I was surprised at how many answers I have for it. So I'll start. What's the most ridiculous thing you have convinced someone is true? I'll lead off while you think of yours. When I was in high school, I had a friend of mine that we thought that whenever we left Alabama, because, you know, the running idea of what Alabama is, we thought it'd be funny to convince people that in some deep parts of Alabama, people drive on the wrong side of the road.
Is that the famous leprechaun clip? Isn't that from somewhere in Alabama? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I do.
The news story with the sketch.
I feel like I probably shouldn't want to know that, or I feel like
it's
I shouldn't
Alabama.
know that. Yeah, no, that sounds about right though. Well, we got some questions here. If you guys want to think of your answers to that one, we can knock out some.
I just think I convince people fairly often that, like, oh yeah, I was there, and I wasn't there.
That you were just lurking.
No, I was there. We talked. It's pretty easy when people are drunk, like, oh yeah, well, this guy did this. I'm like, yeah, I was there. I don't remember being there. I'm like, we had like a half-hour conversation.
And everybody just sits there inside their head panicking because they're like, oh my God, was Grant there and I don't remember? And so they just say, oh, I'll say, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's just not that memorable. And that's the thing. So I had a friend of mine, this isn't me, this is somebody else. And he was convinced that KFC made fake chicken, and like down to the point that they would manufacture fake bones to sell the fact. And I'm just like, look, I'm not a farmer. I've never raised chickens, but I feel like it's more economically feasible to actually raise the chickens as opposed to make fake bones. And
I have to imagine this is a long time ago.
You do realize that the McRib is not actually ribs. Like,
what?
They literally,
it's
they
like
just shaped a patty.
Stuff that they pour into a mold and then pop it out and cook it.
Well, it might be.
I'm saying this person was saying this is not an actual bird. It's not actually chicken. This is like some other kind of meat of some source.
I think Jack in the Box does soy in their tacos.
There was some country that said that Subway's bread was not enough bread to be called bread. You guys know this story?
I do remember this. It was some sort of a yoga mat material, right? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, no, they do use the yoga mat material in their bread. I think it's a bleaching agent. But also, Subway, honestly. I think people used to tell me that Arby's roast beef came out of a tube, which I wouldn't care because it's delicious.
That's so gross.
Did you ever see the chicken nuggets like from McDonald's? They let it sit out for a certain number of hours. It's Devin. Maybe Devin's on the right track with the vegetarian life. He's on.
All I hear is just more reasons. Yep, I'm wearing a restaurant I'm wearing a vegetarian restaurant T-shirt. Well, we got a few questions.
Part of the chicken is the nugget. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got a few actual NBA questions, and we'll let chat see if they want to drop any of their favorite stories in there. We'll, hit that like button if we get your question. Morningwood, friend of the show, wants to know DK tournaments. What are your thoughts on Caruso? I think we touched on him a good bit, but maybe summarize.
He's going to be chalky, right, Grant? Would you fade him?
I mean, he's gross and he's cheap. The problem is I want to pay up for guys, so be on the lookout for anything to swap onto because I don't want to play him, but
gross and cheap, just like the McRib.
Okay, first of all, it's not that cheap. It's a premium item.
I'm on premium. I'm on Team Devin, but it's not premium. Stop it.
Oh, man.
It is. Like there's a reason why they only sell it when the price of pork goes down.
Yeah, because they're in business. McDonald's is a business. I don't know if you know this. Buy low, sell high. By the way, if you want to play Narrative Street, Caruso's Hustle and Shoka pack came out today as well. So
I got one.
There you go. Did you get one, Devin?
I did. I got one of Caruso.
You got a Caruso?
Yeah, it's one of those plays that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, Dean,
Well, he's the guy that can get there on stocks alone, actually. Like he can get like 4 or 5 steals and blocks, and he's 3K DK, man. He's really hard not to play. But
guys, what's your highest net worth moment?
What do you mean for top?
Probably a BAM MGLE rare Series 1.
What's it? I think fair market value.
I think the fair market's like 1,300. I think on it.
What? Oh, Devin.
Man. I've got a Beasley number 4 metallic gold, and it's valued at 1,738.
Did you just wanted to one up? Is that why you asked the question? You could have just told us.
I don't know if that was good. Like my next closest one is Brandon Ingram at 287.
Most of mine are cool cats. I've got a bunch of the cool cats.
I got Lonzo Legendary number 35. There you go. I got that in the pack.
Riveting television entertainment we got going
people
here.
Don't care about this, I don't think.
Levi wants to know, DK tournament small field, is Wendell Carter a good center option?
Grant, you're the tournament guy.
I don't. I mean, it's not bad. Like you can play any of them. The minutes will be there, but I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on it? I know I'm the tournament guy, but I haven't really thought about him much at all.
I don't think I'm getting there. And the problem is, I just don't trust. I don't trust that game, man. But Wagner is doing some things. Bamba's doing some things, and I think Anthony's their best player. You're not getting a great price on Carter. It's fine. I think the game's going to be slow and low scoring. I can't see Carter like putting up like a score you needed, basically.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Morningwood asks again, DK tournament, dollar for dollar, Westbrook or Lillard? If you had to choose.
Westbrook. It's still Westbrook. When I was talking about playing Trae Young or Lillard in tournaments, I still want to play Westbrook everywhere.
What kind of salary cap do you have with that site?
I still want to. So basically, the thing is swapping from Curry to Trae or Jokic to Trae Young or Lillard.
The tricky thing with Curry, he's got a better price on FanDuel, but like the scoring system works better for him on DK. So
yeah,
but like of course you can always play Curry.
Let's see. Moving on. Morningwood asks, DK tournament, is Bay worth that elevated price?
Not really. He's fine in tournaments because he does have some upside. He can get hot from behind the arc, but not really.
I do not anticipate playing Bay at 5'9". And also, he's plays a 7 o'clock game. And if you need a tiebreaker, you can always buy yourself some more time. Again, I think something goofy is going to happen in that Philadelphia game. It may not. Or maybe something in a different game might happen that we can't even anticipate.
Yeah, there's 4 games at 9 o'clock or later.
Just waiting on Philly, waiting on that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I also one time, just because I was wearing closed-toed shoes, convinced someone that I was missing a toe, that it was just a thing that was a fact, a part of me. And they were like, just because I was wearing closed-toed shoes, they couldn't for certain say that I was lying. Let's see. Derek wants to know FanDuel tournament thoughts on Drummond versus Jokic.
No.
I'm not playing Drummonds.
No.
I want to play Jokic, and that's that. Like, I know it's super, super chalky. Gobert's got a really good price on FanDuel. If you're looking in that area, Gobert at 7.8K has got a reasonable price, and Embiid, if he plays at 9.6, seems a little too cheap, right? I know it's a back-to-back, and they went overtime last night. He only played 35 minutes in an overtime game. And we talked about Valanciunas at 6.7K as a pretty good price as well, too. And you're begging for 30 minutes, but maybe he gets 30 minutes. Like, he's a really strong fantasy point minute player, but he doesn't really get there necessarily as far as those minutes, but on occasion it happens. So there you go.
All right. King Dash wants to know, I missed their question earlier. Can I play Jokic, Curry, and Westbrook in the same lineup FanDuel cash? 4,700 average salary left. Feel like there's enough value. What are your thoughts?
Oh man, I have not built a cash lineup. Of course, Jokic you can play in cash. It was Curry and who the other two?
Westbrook, Curry, and Jokic.
Yeah. I don't know how much that hits the Westbrook for sure. And again, that price for Curry is pretty good too. You know what? Let me pull up real quick. Let me pull up our optimals. Let me see what it's putting as far as our point curve. Because I bet
it's a lot of Detroit players.
It's giving us Hayes. I bet it's giving us Hayes. It's actually giving us Hayes and Curry.
Yeah, Westbrook's a little bit expensive over there.
Yeah, but then when he puts up 70, it's like, oh man, I guess he wasn't that expensive.
I'm running some optimals with all three of those guys locked in. You're getting like Grayson Allen, Josh Jackson, Sadiq Bey. Like, you're getting three or four Pistons, and then like Rui and Bertans.
You're getting Stewart, Bey, Jackson, and Hayes, something like that, right?
Well, you can't play Hayes if you have both Curry and Westbrook is the problem.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
See Danny Green down there, 3.7K. He could be more relevant if we see something happen in Philly.
I mean, he might become more relevant, but still probably not relevant because he's Danny Green.
Still Danny Green.
He also benefits from like good, like a distributor like Simmons. Like Simmons is going to get him a clean look, right? So he's one of those guys that doesn't necessarily create his own shot that might benefit from just good players being in the court. I don't have the what is it called? What's our tool called?
NBA defense versus archetype.
No, not that one.
The correlation tool?
The court IQ is what I was trying to think of.
Okay.
Yeah, but in my head, I feel like he would benefit from other good players that can distract and get him wide open threes.
Where do you work, Dean?
Rotogrinders.com.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Adrian wants to know, what games do you guys think will be the highest scoring of the slate?
Well, Indy, Washington.
Indy, Washington.
Well, that's a definitive answer right there.
Golden State, New Orleans, and Portland, Atlanta. Those are going to be very high scoring games.
Well, congrats. We can read numbers. Good job, Grant.
Oh, it's almost like Vegas lines are some of the most accurate lines out there.
Hey, if you guys are playing, baseball tonight, Trout's a good play.
I mean, not really.
Well, yeah, he's got to. Well, I don't know if we're playing Trout tonight.
He's got a tough matchup and he's overpriced, Devin. You were wrong.
Yeah, he's facing Glass now.
What the smart thing to say was like, Coors is on the slate. Play guys in Coors.
And Coors is kind of ugly weather-wise tonight. Stay tuned for
Yeah,
Wolf.
no, I can
busy
still see
day
outside.
for Kevin.
It's been raining for like 24 hours straight.
How close are you to the stadium?
2 miles.
If you go to the game, do you Uber? Do you walk? What do you bike? What do you do?
I scooted and booted.
Is that a scooter?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
You have a scooter?
No, I just they're all over the place. I grab a Lime.
Oh, you rent one.
The rentals, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I mean, parking's such a pain. Like, so I can Uber. Like, I generally Uber home. I scoot there.
What's the booted? I understand the scooted part. What's the booted part? What is that?
I believe it's referring to a song back in the mid 2000s, referring to Tooted and Booted.
Nope, not familiar.
Really?
We got an upstanding citizen in chat called Harry Johnson wants to know how much cash should I invest in DFS? First time playing tonight. I was thinking 4K.
This can't be a serious question.
No, it really can't be.
It depends on what your income is, but if you make $7.8 million a year, I don't know why I came up with that number. Like, why not just run the opto and throw like, I don't know, 50, 60K in there if you make that. If you make 40 grand a year, I probably would stick to $1 entries.
This is a terrible night to be playing DFS for your first time, if that's the case.
Especially,
I'm sorry.
I don't know if it was playing cash, but yeah, like you said before, bless you if you're playing NBA cash right now. We'll end with this one from King because we're coming up to the end of the show here. How many sub 4K players would be feasible FanDuel cash? Kind of related to our earlier conversation.
Sub 4K? Well, Taj Gibson, if Noel was in play, he's 3.9, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know do you need any others?
I honestly I'm looking for sub 4K players. I mean, sub 5K is a different thing, but you can play Caruso, but I probably wouldn't in cash. Hampton's on the edge, but probably wouldn't go there in cash. There's not really any sub 4K players I want to play outside of maybe Gibson.
Rui Hachimura, maybe at 3.9. I don't know if you have to, but he's a guy that, in theory, has an ability. We talk about that game, how much we like that game, like that environment. He could play, 27, 28, 30 minutes or so. You like him when Beal is out. You like him when Westbrook are out. Of course, that's not the case right now, but still, he's plenty cheap. Devin, we got anything else? Or we have to step aside and make way for baseball.
One more. The last one was I convinced my friends growing up that my cat was a bobcat, just like a wild, like a feral animal that we were just waiting for it to grow up to be large enough to kill us.
Was this He-Man inspired? What was He-Man's?
No, I think it was actually my dad's idea. I think he was just
He-Man,
hey,
Master of the Universe.
Yeah, what was his?
The very same. Yeah.
I have Thundera. Was it Thundera?
What?
That might have been Thundercats.
I think we're overlapping here. Venn diagrams.
It's been a Battle Cat.
Is that another cartoon?
SWAT Cats?
What was He-Man's?
I think it was Battle Cat.
Hold on, this is important. We got to stick around for a couple extra minutes here, Devin, because we got to figure this out.
Yeah, Battle Cat is a huge armored tiger and serves as the companion of He-Man.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
All right, Battle Cat.
And on a high note, there you go.
There you
Battle
go.
Cat. Unfortunately, Karl-Anthony Towns' cat is not on the slate tonight. That would have been fun. We can kind of wove that in there. But thank you for watching. Do hit the like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on notifications. Get yourself some RG Premium. You're going to need it tonight, not just for basketball, but for baseball as well, because there is some weather issues out there. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth all over that. He'll be on Crunch Time later today, giving you the most up-to-date update as far as what's going down baseball-wise from the weather perspective. I believe Cheese is good. Dave Potts is also on there talking about baseball. Meansy, you got him for basketball. In between, for everybody on the YouTube, we got some baseball. Stevie and Derek Hardy, CEO of the Bat. That said, we got to step aside and get out of here. That was Grant. That was Devin. This was basketball, loosely, at least enough of it. I was Dean. We're out of here. Holler.
I also think that Acuna being that 30% owned, we're seeing really low ownership on other parts of a Brave stack. I don't think that we're seeing correlated ownership. Would you agree with that?
I've had conversations in the past week or two.
Yeah.
With the thing, those are the types of things that don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Where your because when you're choosing stacks, the whole purpose of me bringing this up is that when you're choosing stacks and making lineups, you're always relating the success rate of the stack to the ownership. Mm-hmm. So I remember there was a slate last week that the Cubs were the winning team. And I played a ton of them. And ownership projections had that stack as maybe the 6th or 7th highest owned stack. But the Bat had the Cubs as the number 1 point per dollar stack. It had the Cubs were projected the best, and they were only going to be the 7th most owned. And it's not just RG. I looked around the industry. It was a kind of consensus with the ownership. So it's okay, I'm going to play a ton of Cubs because at this ownership, they're plus EV. I want to play as many of these Cub stacks as possible. Then lock hits. And I look, and the Cubs end up being the 2nd most highest owned stack. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of that could be down to more people use projections, right? You saw in the Bat, the Cubs were the highest, and you saw in other systems, the Cubs were higher than 7th. Anyone could have made that assumption. They go, why is the ownership coming in 7th highest when they're the 3rd highest projected? And now people are looking and they go, well, I'm going to play more of the Cubs. I want to play more of the, and then next thing you know, they're actually over-owned. So now I'm looking at my lineups before the game even starts, as the first pitch happens, going, if I would have known that the Cubs were twice as owned as I thought they were going to be, I would have barely played them.
Yeah.
Now in that specific instance, they came in or whatever, but I mean, at their ownership, I didn't get enough relative value. And now I'm looking at my lineups going, some of these lineups are too chalky. Like now, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have had the 2 chalk pitchers in this Cubs lineup. I wouldn't have had the chalk one off in this Cubs lineup. So like it's a very big deal to me to figure out like what the meta effect of projections and ownership are, where people are looking at this stuff. And we're talking about the sharp portion of the field. Yeah. We're not talking about like the other 30%, like you said, that are just jamming in the best plays or not even correlate, not even building stacks. Like I'm not even concerning myself with that. But the difference between a 15% owned stack and a 7% owned stack is dramatic. If I believe their efficient ownership is like 10, like that gap means like the difference between, I'm playing 100 lineups. And I think on that slate, I think I played like 22 Cubs stacks in 100 lineups. Yet if I would have known the ownership beforehand, I would have played them in like 4 lineups. Right? Where they're high projected, sure. And I could build some lineups like that, but I'd rather go elsewhere if too many people are playing the Cubs stacks. So how do we look at ownership projections, knowing that other people are looking at ownership projections? Like that's, to me, that's the meta game here. Well, I'm looking at pitcher ownership projections yesterday, and I'm going, Scherzer's going to be over 50% owned. I don't care. It says 38. I don't care that this other site says 32. Like everyone had it in like the high 30s, low 40s, and it comes in at 57%. Like I have to just say no, that people are just jamming in the best pitchers way more than what mathematically you should be doing. And obviously when you do that, you also limit what bats you have. So like if I see people are jamming in X and Y, I have to think that some of these cheaper stacks are going to be owned, or the cheaper portion of the chalk stacks. We had one slate, I think 2 weeks ago, where Gil Heredia, like the Braves were chalky, but Gil Heredia was like 10% owned, batting 8th at home. And it's not like he projected that well. Now the Braves projected well, but the only way to get whatever 11K pitcher on that slate, in order to get the 11K pitcher and a Brave stack of 5 men, you needed 2,800 Gil Heredia.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Grinderslive Baseball Edition. I'm Stevie TPFL. I'm joined today by Derek Carty. What's happening, Derek?
Not much. How's it going?
I mean, the slate is very interesting. The slate would be a lot better if the Rockies game just gets postponed. That would be fantastic. Why haven't they postponed it yet? Just because DraftKings and FanDuel messed up the pricing so much. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what Roth has to say here soon. I'm sure he'll have an update, and he'll be on Crunch Time later and giving up updates. But yeah, it's an interesting baseball slate. We got a lot of bats and very few pitchers.
Yeah, that about sums it up. There's a lot to like on offense and very, very little to like for pitching.
We're offering subscribers the option to select specific sports for premium subscription or Selector Combo Premium, which includes pretty much everything but NASCAR. Make sure you guys use the promo link found in the YouTube chat. What's up, YouTube chat? Take $10 off your first month of either combo or single sport and premium. Somebody said it just got postponed. Did that really happen? Did I get my wish, or are they trolling me?
It'll be interesting to see.
That would be fantastic. But I haven't seen anything yet. So, it is. We just got the alert. Yes. This slate's so much better now. All right. I'm a lot happier about this slate now. Like, it was the Rockies and the Giants were in great spots, and you couldn't really fade them at their prices, even in like tournament like thought process. Man, I'm so much happier now, Derek. Like, I'm so much happier as a tournament player. I'm so much happier in cash. You were probably like, oh, I'm just gonna stack this game and play Bauer and or not Bauer and Bueller and Glasnow.
I actually was gonna do something completely different. So this definitely, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I was gonna. Well, it changes things, but we not only had cores, but it was going to be super cold in cores and wind blowing in, and we have wind blowing out in Wrigley and the Dodgers with that. So I was actually leaning that way, and we have these really cheap pitchers. So it was going to be, I think, an interesting slate. I'm actually a little disappointed it's gone because I think there was definitely some leverage to be had from not playing it, but it is what it is. You know, we'll see how this slate goes now.
There was plenty of leverage, don't get me wrong, but there was also like, how am I not playing Brandon Belt? Like, you know, kind of thing. So obviously that changed up the slate, and it makes this slate more fun. Let's start with pitching like we always do, breaking it down here. When we're looking at pitching, let's just start at the top. Let's just start with Glasnow and Bueller. Like, they're kind of in a league of their own on this slate. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
Yeah, it feels weird to say, but the bat doesn't have them projected 1 and 2. It has them projected 3 and 4. And so at their prices, I don't think they're necessities at all in cash games. Neither one is in a good matchup. You know, like, I get that these guys are really good, but they're expensive and they're not in a great spot. And so, especially now, if you don't have this cores to save on, I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. As good as Glasnow is, he still has a short leash. He's getting a pretty big park downgrade going into a sneaky good home run park in Angel Stadium against a good Angels offense that doesn't strike out like at all. Combined, this is like a 20% strikeout offense, one of the lowest K offenses in baseball. And even though he's Glasnow and he could go out and just do Glasnow things and strike people out because that's what he does, the odds are a little more against it than usual tonight, and you're not really getting any kind of discount on him. So I don't know. I just don't think he's like a must-have guy.
I think Glasnow, if I was going to play one of the two guys, it'd be Glasnow. And I think Bueller is more like, I'm definitely concerned about the weather in Chicago. You know, what Kevin Roth was saying this morning is like, we're going to get, like the first pitch is going to be like right around when the rain starts rolling in. And if that was what the morning looks like, so if this game starts and plays for 30 minutes and then it starts raining, Dave Roberts is not sending Walker Bueller back out there. Like no chance, like zero chance of that happening. So I think it's definitely going to depend on when the weather is supposed to hit. We'll have to wait on Kevin Roth as far as that goes, but it definitely sets up as like one of those things where I don't like Walker Bueller because of that. So I definitely like Glasnow. I hear what you're saying, but it's so easy to pair like Glasnow and Kenta Maeda together that like, and you could build so many solid lineups even when you weren't playing cores. So I like Glasnow. Yeah, the ballpark stinks. The strikeouts, probably not going to be as high against this Angels lineup, but Glasnow is still the most talented pitcher on the slate, so I'm going to play him. When we get past like those two guys, we got Civio, Hauser, Matz, Montas. Any of those guys kind of popping for you here?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of guys here. Like, you mentioned Maeda? Does he count in this range? Because I think Maeda is clearly the best pitcher on this slate.
He's the best point per dollar pitcher on the slate. Like he's kind of in that range. So sure, you can count him in that range. I just kind of went like the 8K guys, but you could throw in Maeda.
I mean, I think he's the best raw pitcher. I would take him, or the bat at least would take him straight up over Buehler and Glasnow. He's facing this bad Texas Rangers offense that is the most strikeout heavy offense on the whole slate. And even though he's not Glasnow good, he's still good. And so in this spot, I think Maeda is perfectly fine. And you get a big discount on him, both in terms of price and probably a little bit in terms of ownership if Glasnow is going to be like the Uber chalk. So I take Maeda in every format over Glasnow.
Yeah, I like Maeda. I'm just gonna play them together, to be honest. Like that's something, even in like tournaments, I'm gonna play that combo a lot today because I do think it's the best combo. And like the games that are like somewhat interesting as far as like pitchers, like we have some potential weather. So I think somebody that like just kind of looking at like projected ownership and everything, like give me your thoughts on Aaron Seville going up against Kansas City in Kansas City. What do you think?
I'm not a big fan of his in general. Like I think he's one of the more fraudulent pitchers in baseball, and I don't love the matchup. I don't love the price. He's just not a guy that I'm really on today.
I mean, yeah, I don't like the price. Don't get me wrong. I hate the price, but I think the matchup is really solid and the ownership is fantastic. When I'm looking at it in tournaments, like I know that we're going to see some people play Lynch on the other side of this game because of his price.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to play Civil. And like, yeah, the top of the order is somewhat scary. Merrifield's a guy that doesn't strike out a lot. Santana doesn't strike out a lot, but like Perez, Soler, O'Hearn, Dozier, like even Benintendi, they all strike out at really high clips. So I think for somebody that's going to pound the strike zone and not walk a lot of people and has some strikeout upside, he's just a pivot off of like the two top guys. And I probably will only play him on like one of my three teams, but I do think he's a guy that I will end up playing today just because if he's really going to be this low owned, it doesn't make a lot of sense when you can't really play Hauser against Philly in Philly with weather. Steven Matz against Oakland, that's a really tough matchup. Montas, I think, is somebody that you could potentially play in tournaments. Like, what's your thoughts on him?
I'd be more inclined to play Montas than Savali. Like, I think Montas is at least I think he's a better pitcher first. It's not like I love the matchup. The Blue Jays are a really, really good offense, but at least he's facing them in a good pitching environment in Oakland. It's cold there like it normally is. So I don't know. It's a tough slate for pitching. We said it at the top. I think a lot of the value is kind of lower in that like 7K range or in the 4K range. So like if you do want just like that, 8K-ish, pivot, I think Montas is fine. I think Wainwright's fine. I think Matz is fine. But none of them are like great today. They're all overpriced. But it's just kind of the kind of slate where, you might just, want to mix in a couple of those guys just because, I guess.
Well, let's go down a little bit more. We got Jose Quintana starting for the Angels now against the Tampa lineup that this team strikes out. Me and you talk about this all the time. We do these shows almost every Monday together, and we talk about how Chicago and Tampa strikes out way more than people realize. And Quintana is 7K. Would he have been 7K had he been the announced pitcher today? Like, he's definitely underpriced. And he has a great matchup going up against Tampa. Like, I don't think Tampa blows him up. And I think, especially if this weather kind of becomes a thing in like Philly and Milwaukee, then like I can get off Vincent Velasquez with like Jose Quintana.
Yeah, I definitely like that. Especially, I didn't see the Brewers lineup yet, but I saw Yelich and I think Kane got activated. So I assume they're in there today. Yeah, they are. So that makes me like Velasquez a little less than I did. I still think he's very much in play for GPPs, but Quintana is a guy that I would have a lot of interest in. I don't know if his ownership projection is wrong right now. It says 0%, and that can't be right. But he's a guy that I think is one of the best pitchers on the slate. Again, slate context. It's not like on a normal slate, he'd be awesome. But on this slate, I think he's, probably one of the 5 best raw pitchers, and maybe even the best point per dollar outside of the 4K guys and Maeda.
Yeah, I don't know. With the Rockies game getting postponed and taking off a lot of the value bats, like it obviously makes these pitchers more viable, especially Jose Quintana. Let's keep going further down here. Like, what are your thoughts when we get into like, I don't think we want to play Kyle Hendricks against the Dodgers. I don't think we trust Dane Dunning to go deep enough into a game.
Nope.
Joey Lucchesi is not terrible. Kramer is against Seattle in Seattle. I think he's going to be somewhat popular. But then we got three 3K guys. We got Kendall Graveman going up against Baltimore at home. Diaz going up against the Pirates. And we got Daniel Lynch making his career first start going up against Cleveland. Derek, talk to me about these guys.
They're all really interesting. At 4K, they project as the 3 best point per dollar guys on the slate. They don't really have to do a lot, to do that. They project for, between 12 and 13 points. Lynch is the one I have the most interest in because, one, he's a legit prospect. He actually projects to be a pretty solidly above average pitcher right away. The Cleveland lineup these days has been kind of gross. It's low strikeout, but it's still kind of a gross lineup. And he's most likely going to have a longer leash than the other two. Like, this is a guy who's been working as a normal starter in alternate site. Like, he's a real prospect. He's a guy they want to use as a starter. Whereas the other two guys, not necessarily the case. Like, Graveman's been a reliever all year. Like, he's not stretched out at all. Diaz is a guy that, given how their bullpen has been taxed, like, they could use as a real starter. But I do worry a little bit about what his upside is. I read some reports earlier that he's been working in the 3 to 4 inning range in the alternate site. And so, if he comes out after 4 innings, that's not really enough value for GPPs. Like, he's not going to get there for you. So Lynch, really, of the 3, is the guy that I like the most overall and that I like the most for upside as well.
Listen, I did a lot of digging on Daniel Lynch today because on the morning grind, I was looking at FanGraphs and they're like, oh, he's not a very high prospect. We didn't hear too much about him, last season because of all the COVID stuff. And like, I was getting like my first taste of him today. This guy grades out really well. Like, this guy could be like super legit right out of the gate. So, everything that you're saying about him makes sense. I think Kramer is somebody that is super interesting as like a pivot. But I also really like the Seattle stack that, like, if I'm not playing Kramer. So I think that's like a boom bust spot for him. So the fact that he's going to be popular makes me like Seattle stack even more in this one. And I think people are going to go down here, like, especially if like we get a lot of weather issues with Bueller. Before we move on out of pitching, I've seen like 2 or 3 people ask about like Steven Matz. I know we take questions at the end, but let's cover Steven Matz really quick before we move on to hitters.
Matz is fine. The matchup's good enough. He's going into Oakland. He's a guy with an elite offense supporting him for win potential. He's facing an Oakland offense that is not as good as it's been in previous years. So I think he's fine. The problem is that he's overpriced the way pretty much all of these 8K guys are. But I view all these 8K guys more or less as interchangeable. And so, if you want to play him, if you want to mix some of him in, it's fine. It's not like I think he's amazing today for the price, though.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton of interest in him. I think Oakland's one of the tougher teams to face as far as like left-handed pitching. I would much rather like take a shot on Montas on the other side. Like, we don't have a lineup for Oakland yet, but they can realistically throw like 7 righties and like 5 of them be really good lefty masters, as Derek likes to say. Like, I need the James McCann video. Like, I forgot to message Devin and like have it ready to go, but that made my day. Like, and I'm so glad whoever did it picked James McCann, because he is like the definition of lefty master, him and Nelson Cruz. So the next time somebody does it for you, they have to do Nelson Cruz. Anything else for pitchers? I think we pretty much covered everything. We're still waiting on Kevin Ross' update as far as weather goes. It's definitely going to be important, because like we're potentially looking at weather in St. Louis, Chicago, and Philly, and like there's some pitchers in those games that are not bad options. So waiting to see. Crunch time will be important today. Let's move on to hitters. We'll start at catching. What's standing out to you here at catcher?
Yeah, so I mean, some of this is going to be dependent on these weather reports, because honestly, especially without Coors on the slate, the best team is easily the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like, they're the best offense in baseball to begin with. And we have, close to 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing out in Wrigley, which is like, 30-mile-an-hour winds blowing out anywhere else. And they're facing Kyle Hendricks, who I really like as a pitcher, but he's been real bad this year. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to turn things around. But he is the type of pitcher, because he doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, he allows a lot of balls in play, that, can be really negatively impacted by the wind, because you just got to get the ball in play in the air, and then the wind can, blow it around. So I think the Dodgers really are in a great spot here. I thought they were in a way better spot than Coors to begin with. And so if we can play Dodgers again, rain concerns, who knows? Will Smith is easily the top catcher on the board. He's the best raw catcher, and he's underpriced enough, especially on a slate where it's very easy to save money with pitching. So it's very easy to afford, these expensive Dodger bats. So I really like Will Smith. But again, weather permitting.
I'm going to play a catcher today that I've never even heard of. Do you want to guess who it is?
That you've never heard of?
I've never heard of this guy. I had to go and look up and make sure he was a real major league hitter.
You got to tell me who it is. There's only there's maybe one guy I could think that maybe you haven't heard of.
I bet you I would guess you'd guess it.
Is it Ben Rortvedt?
It is. Never heard of him before. Had to go look it up and see who I was going to play at 2.1K. He's a lefty facing Dane Dunning and that terrible Texas bullpen. I know he's hitting ninth. I don't care. I like the Will Smith call a lot. I like the Dodgers too. They're probably my second favorite stack. I like the Padres more, just because I think they're going to be a little bit lower owned than the Dodgers today. But I think those are clearly your top two stacks, especially with Coors off the slate now, the Dodgers and the Padres. So I think Austin Nola is a good play against Anderson, 4.1K. He's another guy that kind of sets up really well as far as catchers go. Especially like, okay, if we're going to have weather and like it really takes the Dodgers game out, like I'm always fully supportive of just absolutely just punting catcher. But this slate makes a ton of sense to punt and catcher because we really want to pay up at shortstop on this slate, whether it be Seager or Tatis. The opportunity cost of shortstop today is very huge, in my opinion. Like the two best shortstops in the league have great matchups, and you want to get one of those guys in. So, I think catcher is a position that you kind of fill it last and see who's there, because you can go all the way down to 2.1K. There's a few options down there that you can punt with, or you can get up to Will Smith if you want to, probably in cash games. I think you can look at Sean Murphy too. He's potentially going to be like hitting third or fourth against Mats. Like there's some options, but I definitely like punting catcher today and every day.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're not playing glass now, like you might just have money just to spend on a top catcher just because. You mentioned Murphy, like I think he's totally fine to land on, but you might even just have the money to get up to Real Muto or Salvi, and I think that's fine too.
All right, moving on to first base. Assuming that you like the Dodgers a lot, I think you're going to really like Max Muncy here. He grades out really strong at 4.3K. Assuming that the weather's going to be okay in this game, he definitely becomes like the guy now that like you're not playing Brandon Belt at 3.4K.
Yeah, so I like Muncy quite a bit if we can play Dodgers. If we can't play Dodgers, I think Pete Alonso is a really good high-end pivot. The Mets are in a good spot today against St. Louis. It's still a pitcher's park in Busch Stadium, but it's much less of a pitcher's park than Citi Field is. So it's a nice park upgrade for them. It's the hottest game on the slate, 79 degrees, a little bit of wind blowing out to left field. Adam Wainwright is obviously nothing special, a little bit reverse splitsy. Or neutral splits or somewhere around there. So Alonso, I like a lot. Yeah, that's, I think, I think you play him. I think Rhys Hoskins against Hauser. We have more weather risk there. I guess the Mets have weather risk too. There's just weather risk everywhere today. But Hoskins against Hauser, fly ball guy, you can get home runs against him. I think Hoskins is fine. And, yeah, I mean, if you want to punt, like Alex Kirilloff is still really cheap, and he's been really good so far. I think Ryan O'Hearn against Savali is pretty fine. Daniel Vogelbach against Velasquez, I think that's the low end for you. But I do think spending up a little bit is probably the way to go if you're not playing Glass now, because you're just going to have money to spend on a few spots.
So Kevin Roth updated the MLB weather post. He's going to be busy today, that's for sure. He downgraded New York and St. Louis to yellow, just a chance for a delay or late start. So if you wanted to play pitchers in that game, you definitely can, I think. Late starts are fine. If we're not going to have any delays during the game, it's always fine. But we have orange for Philly and orange for Chicago. So we're definitely going to have to be paying attention to Kevin Roth on Crunch Time today. So if you don't have premium, take advantage of the code link, get your $10 off for baseball, and watch Crunch Time today because it's going to be very important. But I'm with you. I love Pete Alonso a lot. I think this is a great spot. Wainwright is a guy that has struggled with right-handed power bats, and Pete Alonso grades out really well against him. So Pete Alonso is just very good at baseball too. So whether or not you want to believe any of that stuff. So like that call, Muncy, if the weather holds off, is definitely fantastic. But yeah, man, just kind of trying to figure out if you're not playing Maeda, I think like Nate Lowe and like Joey Gallo, if you want to play like those power lefties, they're very much in play.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think we missed anything. You mentioned Alex.
If Quintana is going to wind up popular, I don't know if he is. You can definitely play some Rays as leverage against him. So like a guy like Mlb Dfs would be a good value or that kind of thing.
All right, move on to second base. What are you looking at here at second base today?
I think Jeff McNeil, for all the reasons that we like Alonso, is a really strong play here leading off tonight. Roth downgraded this game, you said, right? Yellow now. So
it's yellow. Yeah. Late start.
Yeah. So that's really nice to have at least one fewer game to worry about the weather for. So I like McNeil quite a bit. I like Lau, Brandon Lau, as part of your leverage raise stacks potentially. If we do get this Dodgers game, Chris Taylor is going to be an option. And on the Cubs side, David Bodie. Yeah, it's against Buehler, but it's still Wrigley wind. He's cheap. I have no problem saving a little bit of money with a guy like that.
I think second base is another position that is kind of just a wasteland today. Like we don't have anybody projected over like 10%. And I think that is, I think like if you can nail whoever hits the home run or the couple guys that hit home runs at second base today, you're going to be looking really good in tournaments. But in cash games, I think that if you get second base wrong, it's probably not going to kill you in cash today. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how second base kind of plays out. But, we keep talking about the Dodgers and Gavin Lux at 2.8K. Like, I know he's batting eighth, but they're on the road. They're guaranteed the ninth inning. We like the offense. I think he gets 4 at-bats, and sign me up. I know he's started the season off slow, no home runs, batting under 200, but we know he's talented, and he's 2.8K on top 2 offense on the slate. So I think he becomes somebody that a lot of people shift to, especially with like Coors getting off the slate and stuff now. But yeah, just kind of looking at it. Second base. Did you mention Luis Arias facing Dunning at 3.8K batting leadoff?
I didn't mention him. I think he's fine. You're not going to get a lot of power upside out of him, but in terms of value, I think he's a fine play. And I mentioned Brandon Lau, but Mike Brousseau is hitting second for them. He's always going to have a big pinch hit risk, but in GPPs, you can take that risk. He would be totally fine.
All right, moving on over to third base. Listen, there's only 2 third basemen, maybe 3 third basemen that I'll play today. I love Machado, Seager, and I think Travis Shaw is playable, assuming the weather is going to be okay.
I think Justin Turner, assuming the Dodgers are in play, I think he's going to be the top option for me. But I do like Machado quite a bit. I like Travis Shaw quite a bit, which feels weird. Like, Travis Shaw was this guy that everyone hated to play, a year ago or 2 years ago. And now we like playing him here in this spot, but he's hitting cleanup. He's against Velasquez, great power park. He's cheap. I think Shaw is a very good play.
Yeah. Like I said, assuming that the weather is going to hold off, he sets up as one of the better value plays. I think Justin Turner is going to be super popular today, but I love Machado. Again, I really like the Padres today. Like, the Padres are going to be like that make or break team for me today. I'm probably going to stack them on 2 of my 3 teams today. I think, it's hard not to like Machado against Anderson, and it's hard not to like Turner against Hendricks for all the reasons that we like the Dodgers. And Kyle Seager just kind of quietly sitting in that like 4.2K range. He's a guy that can hit the ball out of any ballpark, and Kramer's a guy that definitely is someone that you can target with left-handed power bats. So I think Seager is somebody that, like, if you're hoping to catch some people on the late slate, like, Kramer gives up a ton of hard contact and a ton of fly balls to both sides of the plate. So hopefully Seager can, catch you up if you need some ketchup. And ketchup's always good, but usually on burgers. Anything else here as far as like third base?
I mentioned Brousseau and Yandy Diaz already. I think they're in play here at third base also. I think Hunter Dozier, I think there's definitely some upside for him today against Savali. Third base is, that's kind of it. You make a case for a Matt Chapman one-off, platoon advantage against Matt's big time power. I think he's totally fine.
Yeah, never hate doing that. Let's go to shortstop. I'm assuming that you're with everybody else and you're playing Corey Seager today.
Seager, and if you can't play Seager, Tatis. Like you said earlier, shortstop's a spot you generally want to spend up on. Today, they're both in really good spots, and so I don't see any reason not to pay up for one of them, at least in cash games tonight.
I think in tournaments too. I think the opportunity cost is too much not to pay up at shortstop, because look at the shortstops that you're paying up for today. You're paying up for Lindor against Wainwright, Tatis, Seager. I guess, like, if you want to go under 4K, Didi against Hauser in that Milwaukee game is fine. But, like, what punt shortstop has any kind of power that you can feel confident about? None of them. So
you can make a case for maybe Paul DeYoung with the platoon advantage against Lucchesi with the hot weather and the wind and everything. I think he's fine, but again, he's not Seager or Tatis.
Somebody just told me my jokes stink. Listen, I got jokes for days. My wife just texted me and she said, order pizza because I'm going to be late. So my jokes to get better. I'm paying attention again. Like, I don't know, shortstop's a position you pay up for today. Even like Bichette, like you could pay up for Bichette or Polanco. Like, I just think you're paying up at shortstop today. I think that you're giving up too much, where, like, when we were talking about paying down at catcher, there's maybe 1 or 2 catchers that you can pay up for that you're kind of like fading. At shortstop, you're fading really a lot of these guys over like 3.9K if you're going down in the 2K range and playing like Nicky Lopez. So I think you're paying up at shortstop today. Outfield's always kind of loaded up. What are we looking at here for outfield?
Yeah, outfield, like you said, there's always a bunch to like at outfield. So we have Christian Yelich back tonight, back in the lineup for the first time in a while. He's definitely underpriced for who he is. 4.6K for one of the top 10 hitters in baseball against a homer-prone pitcher in a homer-prone park with the platoon advantage. So I think Yelich is a really, really strong option tonight. Avisel Garcia in the same lineup for 3.1K, also going to be a really strong option tonight. If we get the Dodgers game, Mookie Betts is fantastic. He's 6K, but he would, I think, be worth it in this spot. Not a must-play kind of guy, but a guy that you can make room for fairly easily, and a guy that if you can get there, you want to try to do it. In the same game, Jock Peterson is leading off for the Cubs at 3K. Sure, it's against Buehler, but he's 3K. He's got the platoon advantage. He's leading off. We got the Wrigley wind. I have no problem playing Jock in a spot like that. We've talked about the Mets. Michael Conforto is in a really good spot, the same as the other guys, 3.8K for him. Austin Meadows, I think, is a good one-off or as a leverage stack. If Quintana winds up being popular, I still don't think we have updated ownership on him yet, so I'm really curious to see if he's going to be popular or not. But I would kind of think he would be. Benintendi, I've mentioned kind of a few of these cheaper Royals, like a Royals mini stack against Savali tonight, I kind of like, and Benintendi would be a good part of that. You mentioned Padres. Tommy Pham is really cheap tonight. He'd be a good play. Kevin Pillar at 2K against Wainwright, like he's perfectly fine if you need to save a whole bunch of money there.
I mean, one of the reasons I like the Padres stack is nobody's playing Trent Grisham at 5.6K lefty. Will Myers is going to be really low owned at 5K. Pham opens up the whole stack at 2.7K batting fifth. I love the Padres because they're priced up and nobody's going to play them, but unless you're playing Glass now, it's so easy to make a Padres stack work, especially if you punt catcher like me. So, I think overall the Padres are super interesting because of ownership and matchup. But like you said, if we get the Dodgers, like these Dodgers are in great spots. We haven't talked too much about Seattle and Baltimore. That game could get super ugly and be really high scoring. I'm not scared of Kramer, and I'm definitely not like a Graveman fan. I think Graveman is not a terrible pitcher, but I think overall, when we're looking at that game, there's plenty of cheap bats. They were kind of like the cheap stack pivots off of cores, and Haniger, Kyle Lewis, DJ Stewart's really cheap in that game. Marmelois, if he is a guy that cracks the lineup, like there's plenty of cheap bats in that game. If you need cheap bats, and if you're looking at that game, make sure you play Kyle Seager because he's going yard. Anything else here outfield wise? A lot of outfielders got taken off the slate when that game got postponed.
Yeah, I think that kind of covers it.
All right. We'll get into questions. Before we get into questions, I know you said Dodgers. Is there any other stacks that you really like?
Yeah, I mean, Dodgers and Padres, I think on the high end are kind of the obvious ones, the Dodgers being preferable for me. I really don't mind a Cub stack because you're going to get some leverage off of the Buehler ownership. Buehler really hasn't been Buehler this year, and we have this Wrigley wind, so I don't have a problem with a Cub stack. The Mets and the Brewers I really like. And then I mentioned the Rays and Royals. I think maybe more as a mini stack than a full stack, but I think you can definitely find value off of both of them tonight.
All right. Let's get into questions. Best bets for tonight. Is there any bets that you like?
I have not looked at lines today.
Just kind of looking. Yeah, I was quickly looking. There's nothing like instantly standing out to me. I would say, I think the Angels.
I was just about to say Angels.
Like that game. Good. Yeah, you get a lot of value betting the money line on the Angels there. So, yeah. I think that game's a coin flip, and like it opened as a coin flip, and it moved way Tampa heavy when I think that's super interesting right there. I think that's the game that I'm looking at the most.
The bet has it projected as a coin flip too, with like massive value on the Angels. So that's your bet today.
If the weather holds off in Chicago, I think the over in that game too. It's at 8.5. If the weather holds off, I think the Dodgers can put up 8 by themselves in that game. So
yeah.
I think that's it for bets. I was quickly looking. Yeah, the Padres game was at 8 earlier today, and if you could have gotten it at 8, it was pretty good value. Favorite single entry strategy. I mean, mine's simple today. Stack the Padres.
I'm a cash game player. I don't do single entry, but 5-man stack a team, find leverage, play the ownership game, and there you go.
I mean, if you really want to play single entry and get different today, just don't play Bueller or Glasnow. It's as simple as that.
It's very easy not to play them. Honestly, it's probably optimal not to play them. So today it could be a really good day to, take advantage of that kind of thing.
Are we worried about Texas due for regression? His called strike plus whiff rate down 3% over the last 3 weeks and lost velocity for Maeda.
I'm really not that concerned. Like the bat takes into account when teams are going to regress. Like if we think Texas is underperforming, we think they're going to get better. That's in the projection. This is really not a great offense, no matter how you cut it, even with, expected regression coming, I guess. Like they still project as a bottom 5 offense in baseball and the most strikeout heavy one on the slate. So Maeda is clearly the best guy today, in my opinion. Not by a ton, but especially once you consider price and that he's going to be a little lower owned than guys like Glasnow. Like he's just, from a process standpoint, clearly the best guy.
He doesn't walk people either. This team's not a team that walks. They swing and miss at a very high clip. Texas does. Yeah, you're worried a little bit about Lowe, Gallo, Garcia, that combo right there. But what pitcher?
But yeah.
What pitcher on the slate, though, are you he's going to strike out all 9 guys in the projected lineup? That's not going to happen. Every pitcher you're always worried about. Every team usually has 2 to 5 decent hitters in their lineup, and you're just hoping that you don't get blown up by those guys, and you get around those guys and you pitch well enough. So, yeah, we'll see. New catcher for Maeda today, too, so we'll see. Maybe my punt catcher catches Maeda better, and we win all the money with Maeda with the punt catcher because he's feeling so confident he goes yard. DK, thoughts on a Seattle stack?
I know you're really on them, so why don't you speak to that? I don't love them as much as you do.
I mean, it really just comes down to price. I was on them to pivot off of Coors price-wise because it was going to be really cold in Coors. The weather was kind of crappy in Coors anyway. Dean Kramer is a guy that gives up a ton of fly balls and a ton of hard contact just in general. His hard contact ratio was 48% since the start of last season, and his soft contact rate's 11%. So I love looking at pitchers that have above a 25 to 30% hard to soft contact ratio, and he's at 37%. So I think any lineup in baseball, when you have a guy that's going to give up a lot of hard contact, is interesting, and they're cheap. So we know France, Seager, Lewis, and Marmoleos, they all hit the ball hard. And even Haniger is a good hitter. So, you can make secondary Seattle stacks and save all the money in the world and stack the Padres or the Dodgers and, get different with the Seattle stack. So that's why I like them today. The follow-up question is, do we like Kramer? And I think it's a catch-22, right? I think it's boom or bust. Kramer is a guy that can strike people out. So Seattle's a team that can strike out. So I think it's there's no happy medium. Kramer's going to pitch really bad and Seattle's going to do really well, or Kramer's going to pitch well and Seattle's not going to do good.
Yeah, I don't love that it looks like he's going to be fairly chalky, but just from a price projection standpoint, I do think Kramer's a good play today.
Yeah. Let's see. I have to pull up the questions again. I was looking up something. Which 4K starting pitcher would you play on DK GPPs? I think we're both in agreement that it's Lynch, right?
Yeah, it's definitely Lynch for me.
What are your thoughts on Tyler Anderson? He's been okay. Well, you don't want my thoughts on him. I'll let Derek take this one.
I think he's unnecessary against the Padres on this slate. Maybe you can get away with it, but you're not getting a discount. He doesn't project super well. I think he's just unnecessary.
Yeah. He pitches okay when he's pitching in Pittsburgh because it's a good ballpark for him. But even San Diego's not a bad ballpark, don't get me wrong. But I think this is a spot that Anderson's not going to strike anybody out. And this lineup's just way too good. And it goes back to what we talk about all the time, right? We don't play a lot of pitchers against the Dodgers and the Padres because they're the two of the best offenses in baseball. So, let's see here. We talked about Kyle Seager. Do you have thoughts on Kyle Seager? They say he's popping in lineup HQ today.
Maybe using plate IQ he is. I don't think he is with the bat. The bat has definitely liked Seattle stacks at times in the past. It doesn't really like them that much today.
I like Kyle Seager. I like his tournament upside. Is today the day that Lindor breaks out?
I mean, maybe. If you're stacking Mets, you should have him. But Lindor's a guy who's been overrated for years to begin with. Like, everyone always thought Lindor was this great hitter, even though he was never actually putting up numbers that were that great. And Progressive was really helping him. And now that he's not in Progressive, like, I don't know. Like, I don't think Lindor is much better than like an above average hitter.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the matchup is necessarily terrible for Lindor.
No, it's a good spot. I like the Mets today in general, and Lindor would be a part of that. I just, if you're expecting Lindor to all of a sudden become like a great hitter again, like he's just getting unlucky and he's going to be amazing, I don't think we're ever getting that Lindor.
Yeah, I think the thing that you need to look at when you're looking at like underlining, somebody just said the Dodgers game got postponed. When you're looking at like underlining numbers to kind of try to figure out like if something's going wrong or anything, like his xWOBA is like under 300. And like when we're looking into his numbers, like he doesn't have like a super high hard hit rate right now. So Kyle Seager was a perfect example of this earlier this season. Like Kyle Seager's like xWOBA was like 200 points higher. His hard hit rate was like 60% or something like that. And he was just hitting the ball to people. That's not what the case is here for Lindor. So definitely concerned, and everything that you kind of said points out some things that you should be worried about as well. Thoughts now, like on the slate overall with the Dodgers game getting postponed?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of tried to address it throughout, how to approach it with and without Dodgers. So I like the spot a lot for offense. Now you just switch to your other spots. You play Padres, you play Mets, you play Brewers, you play, everyone we talked about.
I hate it. I love the Coors game getting canceled, but dang it, I wanted the Padres to be low owned, and now everybody's going to play the stinking Padres because the Dodgers, maybe not. Who knows? They're still expensive, but now it definitely bumps up Glasnow's ownership because people that were playing Bueller are just going to quickly pivot to Glasnow. So Glasnow is going to be even more chalkier now. McNeil or Cesar Hernandez, FanDuel single entry, small field GPP last spot.
Assuming neither one has like a correlative effect on your lineup, play McNeil.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Is Maeda still the number one guy even on FanDuel?
Yep.
Yeah. Thoughts on 2.6K Nicky Lopez? Pay up at shortstop today.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Muncy or Taylor?
Neither. Game got postponed.
Yep. Mlb, can you give your thoughts on Daniel Lynch again?
Yeah, I mean, Lynch is a legitimate prospect. He projects as an above average pitcher right now. He's in a pretty good spot against Cleveland. Cleveland's taking a big park downgrade. And even though they're a low strikeout offense, they're at least kind of a below average offense too. And so Lynch, as a good pitcher in a decent spot for 4K, he's basically free, and he should have a decent leash, not a long one, but it's not like he's going to be pulled after 3 or 4 innings, if he's pitching well. So he can go deep into the game if he's doing well. So yeah, I like him quite a bit for GPP. Even cash games, maybe at this point, maybe there's not enough to spend on, but he is he's probably the best point per dollar pitcher play on the whole slate.
Yeah. Are you concerned a little bit about his pitch count, or you think he's going to get 75, 85 pitches?
I think that's, very doable for him. I don't see any reason why he couldn't do that. They said he's been working at the alternate site. He should be stretched out, so he should be fine. Those types of guys don't get 100 pitches in general, but he should be able to get like a normal workload for him.
Let's see. Moving on is all right. That is a Dodgers question. We're going to skip that one. Is Kramer good for cash or GPP only on DraftKings?
I don't think he's necessary in cash games. I mean, I guess you can do it, but at this point, I really don't know what you're paying for. I think just spend up a little more on Quintana. I think that's probably the smarter play.
Thoughts on a Kansas City stack?
Yeah, I mentioned them earlier. I think there are a few guys on Kansas City that are really good values. As a full stack, I don't know if it gets you there tonight, but as like a 3-man mini stack, I'm definitely on board.
The slate changed so much since we started doing this show to now. Like, I think this is one of those slates where don't overthink going back and like rebuilding your teams. You know, we get to the point where we don't like to rebuild teams late because we like what we like. I think this is one of those spots where you're kind of like re-going over the slate, especially like we're watching the weather in the other game now too. And just kind of rethink the slate, kind of go back and look at it and just see what you're looking at overall in the slate, because it's definitely changed a lot in the last hour. Feels like basketball. Can you remind us how the temperature plays an effect in Seattle? It's just a cover over the field, not a roof, correct?
Yeah, it's not a roof that's gonna, enclose the whole stadium. It's just a roof. Air flows through, temperature flows through, whatever the temperature is outside, that's going to be the temperature in the park.
All right, we're gonna run through these last few questions pretty quick here. Isn't the opportunity cost at shortstop a lot less now with only Tatis up top?
Yeah, I mean, without Seager, like that's going to impact that a little bit for sure. Tatis is the clear top guy now. In cash games, you're still not fading him, but in GPPs, maybe it's a little easier to.
Yeah, I still think like it really comes down to like who are you really going to play if you're punting shortstop? Like, yeah, like punting catcher, you're not really like now. Will Smith is off the slate too at catcher, so like now punting catcher makes a ton of sense. So we'll have to kind of see. Pivot to twin stack now off the Dodgers.
Twins wouldn't really be where I'm looking.
Yeah, I like the Mets more now.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that. I think that's where I'm going to end up. I think I'm going to end up more on the Mets more than anything.
Yep.
Thoughts on the Blue Jays? We really didn't talk about Blue Jays bats really at all today. Do you have any interest in them?
I'm a big fan of the Blue Jays in general. I don't think this is the spot for them. Big park downgrade, one of the better pitchers talent-wise on the slate. I just don't think the Jays are really awesome today.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you can definitely play a Blue Jays stack just because they have so much power, and if they do go off, you're probably getting home runs and stuff. But I'm with Derek. I don't think they're like a top 3 stack on the slate still, even with all the games kind of getting weather. All right, a couple more questions. Soler or Benintendi, DK, GPP?
I like the value on Benintendi better, but obviously Soler has more power, so kind of up to you.
Quintana's walk issues. Do you like a raise stack?
I do, especially if Quintana is going to wind up being somewhat popular. Maybe a mini raise stack as opposed to a full one, but you can definitely think about stacking raise tonight.
How bad is this Lynch guy? Should I play any Cleveland stacks?
No, he's not bad. He's actually probably pretty good. And Cleveland's not a very good offense. Park downgrade. I'm not big on Cleveland.
All right, last question. Vlad over Machado if you have the extra salary, ?
Just straight up, Machado is better. If you're just looking for a way to be different, I guess.
I mean, that's really the only play. That's really the only reason you're playing Vlad over Machado in this spot is just to be different. Montas is a little bit better pitcher than Anderson, and Machado is a better hitter than Vlad from what we've seen so far. So, I wish Vlad would keep hitting home runs. I have a bunch of Vlad rookie cards sitting in front of me. Yeah. Anyway, that's gonna wrap it up here. Appreciate everyone watching and all the questions. Make sure you guys like and subscribe over there on YouTube. Help us out. Let's keep those subscriber numbers going up. He's Derek Carty. I'm Stevie. Crunch time up next. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you next time.
What's up, Derek? This is James McCann. I'm just reaching out to you on behalf of the Bat Gang. I hear you're a real numbers genius, and they wanted me to reach out to you and just talk to you about, I guess, my numbers hitting against lefties. Something y'all want to talk about. Numbers don't lie. I guess if you're a numbers genius, you know that. So, like I said, I'm just reaching out on behalf of the Bat Gang. You have to let me know what you think. They wanted me to say something about a quote lefty masher unquote. But again, just go with the numbers. You're the numbers genius. Go with the numbers, man. Take care. What's up, Derek?